The Dog and Its Reflection. In a peaceful little village, there was a dog loved by everyone for its loyalty and diligence. It never missed a guard shift, always barked to alert when strangers appeared, and was clever enough to distinguish between friend and foe. The homeowner adored it and treated it like a member of the family. One day, after chasing away a thief who tried to break in at night, the dog was rewarded by its owner with a big bone, still clinging to some delicious-smelling meat. Its eyes lit up with joy, and its tail wagged continuously. It gently took the bone in its mouth and ran around the yard excitedly, as if celebrating its achievement. Not wanting to be disturbed while enjoying this special gift, the dog decided to take the bone outside the village to a quiet place where it could eat in peace. It strolled down a dirt path leading to a green field, full of excitement, unaware that a costly lesson was awaiting it ahead. The dog walked out of the village, holding the bone tightly in its mouth as if afraid someone might snatch it. The village path led to a lush field, where a small winding stream flowed, crossed by an old wooden bridge that locals used on their way to work. When it reached the middle of the bridge, the dog suddenly stopped. A gentle breeze passed by, and the water under the bridge was as calm as a mirror. Curious, it lowered its head to look down. Its eyes widened when it saw another dog holding a huge bone in its mouth beneath the water. The reflection clearly mirrored every ear, nose, and even the bone it was holding, but from its distorted angle, the bone seemed larger than the one it had. The dog blinked a few times and tilted its head to observe more carefully. It didn't realize that it was merely looking at its own reflection. In its eyes, the dog below was challenging it and seemed to have no intention of giving up the treasure in its mouth. Stimulated by rivalry and greed, it began to think, if I can take that bone, I'll have both mine and his. What a feast that would be! And from there, the mistake began to form. The dog stood still on the bridge, eyes locked onto the opponent in the water. It felt as if the dog below was mocking it, saying, "My bone's bigger than yours, you don't stand a chance." That thought made its pride flare up. It growled deep in its throat and stepped closer to the edge of the bridge for a clearer look. In its eyes, that bone was truly irresistible, longer, thicker, and seemingly meatier. The dog started imagining the scene, stealing the bone, bringing it back to the hill behind the village, and enjoying it piece by piece in comfort. It wouldn't be hungry for the entire day, maybe even saving some for tomorrow. But then a thought flashed through its mind, if I stay here too long, that dog might run off. I need to act now. So it growled threateningly, stretched its neck forward, intending to scare the dog in the water into dropping the bone. In that moment, its fighting instinct and greed completely overpowered reason. Without thinking further, it opened its mouth wide to let out a loud bark. As the bark escaped, its precious bone dropped from its mouth, floated briefly in midair, and then fell with a splash into the cold river below. In an instant, the water rippled, the reflection disappeared, and the bone was gone from sight. The dog was stunned, its whole body frozen. Not only had it failed to obtain the illusory bone, but it had also lost the one it truly had. The sound of the splash startled it. It bent its head over the river, eyes wide, trying to spot the bone. But the water had begun to ripple, the once clear surface was no longer still. The reflection had vanished, leaving only gentle eddies spinning in the stream. Frantically, the dog looked around. It ran to one side of the bridge, then to the other. It peered into the water from every angle, hoping to find the bone, but it was too late. The bone had sunk deep into the river, leaving no trace behind. Only then did it begin to understand. The dog beneath the water wasn't anyone else, it was its own reflection, and that bigger bone was just an illusion. There was no rival. No other dog with a better bone. It was all born from its own greed and delusion. It sat down in the middle of the bridge, quietly watching the flowing water, ears drooping, tail limp. A wave of regret washed over it. The precious gift, the real bone, had been in its mouth, and just because of a foolish moment, everything had vanished. It sighed. A painful lesson, but also the moment clarity returned. After sitting dazed by the bridge's edge for a while, the dog quietly stood up. It no longer bounced or barked like before, but walked home with a heavy and dejected posture. Its tail hung low, ears drooped, and its eyes were full of disappointment. Along the way, it no longer looked around or sniffed the air eagerly like it used to. It didn't blame anyone, because the one who made it lose the bone was itself. If it hadn't been greedy for something that wasn't its own, if it hadn't tried to compete with a mere illusion, perhaps by now it would be lying peacefully under the tree, enjoying that precious reward. As it crossed the bridge once more, it lowered its head to look down at the river. The water remained clear, reflecting its image. But this time, it was no longer deceived. It understood, not everything bigger and shinier is real, sometimes, it's just the illusion of greed. From that day on, the dog became more calm and thoughtful, and it never again lost what it had for the sake of chasing vague, empty things.